If you're not careful, that monster's gonna eat you up.
Crew 2. It is an open world racing game, and I am Blunty. It is developed by Ivory Tower, it is published by Ubisoft, it is released at the end of the month on June 28th, and it is coming out for PC, PlayStation 4 and Xbox One, including of course the Pro and X flavours of the consoles for some sweet 4K goodness there as well. In fact, what you're watching me play is dev code running on an Xbox One X in 4K. Obviously, Crew 2 is the sequel to 2014's The Crew, which I never played. I liked it in concept, and I intended to play it. It was something fresh and different in the genre, but for whatever reason, it just slipped by me at launch, and then too much time had passed, and then I decided to wait for the sequel, because racing games are almost always much better in their sequels. Especially so for something like this, which features a persistent open-world environment in which you can free roam throughout a shrunk-down version of the United States. Progression is tied to... deep sigh. Progression is tied to the millennial obsession with self-worth measured through the number of social media followers you can gather.
Check out the Storm X display.
Basically, every time you do something cool or win races and events and such, you get more followers, and thus become a better human being. Because that's what counts. That's how things work these days. The more followers and subscribers you have, the better person you are, and whatever. Gen X snark aside, it's just a millennial-friendly word to paint over what was in video games used to be called points. You get points when you do sweet stuff, and the more points you have, the more progress you can make, and progression equals more stuff to do and access to more and better vehicles. And it's this which leads us into my favourite part of my time with the game, because beyond just cars, Crew 2 allows you to drive and pilot motorcycles, boats, and airplanes. Oh my. And of course, each have their own sets of races and challenges, but my very favourite part is you can actually switch on the fly as you drive or fly between your selected vehicles. At the tap of a button, you could be in an all-wheeler. At the tap of a button, you could be in the air. At the tap of a button, you could be skipping across the water. You do have to be slightly mindful when you swap between any. Swapping to your boat in the middle of the desert isn't going to do you much good, and when you switch to the stunt plane, well, the game tries to spawn you somewhere where you won't insta-crash into a friggin' tree, but it's not always super great at it, so you know, a little bit of situational awareness when you choose to switch your vehicles is helpful. Now, IRL, me. The only driver's license I have ever held is one for bikes. 2 wheels only, no cages for Blunty. So, whenever a game has bikes as an option, I'm pretty critical of how they feel to control. It's all I've ever known. And most games get them pretty wrong, frankly. Some do okay, and some that strive for super high accuracy are often very difficult to use, because riding is about a melding of your senses and the balance and with what the bike and the road is doing, and with a controller, well, you can't really do that, so it's tough to get bikes to feel right in video games. So it just comes down to how the bike accelerates and stops and how it turns, and in Crew 2, it's pretty okay. Better than average, in fact. It takes a few races to really get the feel for it, but I do like it.
Today's course is really going to challenge our racers.
The cars feel pretty standard for arcadey races these days. It feels tight, responsive and weighty, very instinctive and natural feeling to drive if you played like half a dozen recent races in your time. modes, well, they're pretty simple actually, sluggish by comparison because that's how physics works when you're pushing a big thing through water at high speeds, but control is easy to get to grips with, and it felt pretty good. And finally, planes. Now needing three-dimensional control, it gets more complicated, and this too takes a while to adjust to, more than any other vehicle really. In my few hours, I never got to the point where I felt especially good at it, at a more instinctive level where I didn't have to really think about what controls I needed to use next, but I started to feel like that was on the horizon, so seems okay. But even though I didn't have time for it to become second nature, flying did become exciting and fun, and chaining together stunts was very satisfying. Same goes for the bikes, actually, with the motocross tracks and stuff. Jumps and flips took a bit to get a feel for, but once you do and you get the timing right, it's super satisfying. And it makes you feel pretty badass when you get it right. The physics for all the vehicles I tried, and in fact the random crap in the environment I would slam into, sometimes to see how it would react because I was testing the game, and more often because, well, I believe brakes are for little wussy babies. But everything did feel and bounce around in a fairly satisfying way. I liked the off-road vehicles for this too. Too often in racing games, these type of cars feel way too floaty and not really connected to the surfaces they're on, but here it felt pretty nice to climb around on the rocks and crap, and the physics felt, well, they're video game physics, but they felt pretty good. And while you can absolutely play single player, the game's name is The Crew after all, so obviously teaming up is an integral part. Multiplayer is of course baked in from the ground up by design, both competitive and cooperative, for rally and raid and races and stuff. But if you prefer a single player life, or you just aren't online when your friends are, you can also play these modes with computer control partners. So even if you're playing alone, you're not missing out on any content. And judging by how the AI works in races, it should be a decent enough substitute for multiplayer partners in these multiplayer modes. On the subject of AI though, I will warn you, there is rubber banding, and you do notice it. It's pretty aggressive rubber banding, really. There was more than one race where I felt like I'd carved out a significant lead using a combination of mild skill and blind luck, and I was feeling pretty good about myself, only to have the AI opponents climb directly up my bumhole out of nowhere. It's annoying. And sure, I know, in arcade races, this mechanic is in there to make you feel under pressure for the whole race, which keeps the thrill and excitement high, but it does very much, to me, feel like I'm being flat out cheated out of my hard-earned and surely insurmountable leads late in the race. It's a double-edged sword. Obviously, I'm on the side of the fence that friggin' hates rubber banding in racing games, but your virtual mileage may vary. Aside from that, as you've been seeing, it's a damn pretty game too. There's weather systems, day-night cycles, and everything is modelled very prettily indeed. Except for the people, who look and are animated like they come from a PS3 game. Not a particularly good PS3 game, which is very distracting for those few brief moments where you see them at the game hubs where you buy new vehicles and such. But in the end, in the actual gameplay that matters, you don't see these character models, so it doesn't matter. But talking about how things look, better yet, there's a fairly advanced photo and video mode for you to play with to get awesome shots and edit together highlight reels of your best races and stunts. I may dig into this in its own video a bit deeper, but suffice to say for now, it's a real nice photo mode. Plenty of options for moving the camera around and various lens focal lengths and stuff like that. You can remove the drivers, you can fiddle with time of day, weather and all kinds of stuff. I'm going to spend a lot of time playing with this, I can just tell. The video mode allows you to rewind and replay the last 10 minutes of gameplay, regardless of if you're in free roam or a proper race or a mix of both. From here you can change the camera angles, even go full manual camera and track the race yourself, and play cameraman and track through the entire race yourself. You can change the playback speed, you can record everything, you can go back and redo something if you got it slightly wrong with your camera movements, and then you can record the whole thing in a fairly polished way for a recorded video you can share. It is, as is all video editing in games, a bit clumsy compared to the real video editing I do every damn day on proper video editing software, but I feel like there's plenty of power here for people to make some really impressive race and stunt montages and stuff. So, final verdict based on a fistful of hours played on a developer build. It's a real nice feeling racer with some great looking environments and a lot of variety with the kinds of vehicles you can control and the places you can control them in, and with the ability to swap between them at literally any moment on the fly as you choose. I think it's well worth a look. Now all I have to do is decide if I want to play it on my Xbox One X or my PC. Thanks for watching. I'm Blunty, and I will catch you next time.
3, 2, 1.
Over here. Can we get a shot of you with the winner, Wade?
Parents of a lost 6-year-old boy. He's waiting for you at guest services. Please come pick him up.
Winning matters, but you know what else does? Owning the track. Deep woods, heart of the city, it doesn't matter. If there's a path, we'll find it. If there's no road, we'll make our own. I'll tell you straight up, if you want to follow someone else's path, this isn't the place for you.